This video reviews how to use the Python library OpenPyXL to clear all of the data validations from an Excel worksheet. Here is the testing document where we can see two different data validation dropdowns. One contains numbers in cell B2 and one contains letters in cell C4. I'll use Python to get rid of these two data validations. Here I'm bringing in the workbook as WB and I'm selecting the worksheet as WS. I will save the work in the cell below. Let's begin by looking at the data validations that we currently have on our sheet. That is accomplished by accessing the data validations attribute of the worksheet object. You can see that we have a count of two distinct data validation objects. The first one we can see here is located at C4, and the second is at B2. Notice how these are both contained within a list, as is displayed with these square brackets, and that the list is contained on the attribute data validation. All we need to do is remove these two items, and that can be done by passing a blank list of data validation objects to it. To start that process, I need to import the data validation list object from the worksheet.dataValidation module of OpenPyXL. I then simply assign that object to the data validations attribute of the worksheet object. It's actually that simple. Let's run this, save the work, and open up the document to see if we were successful. Perfect. The dropdowns are now gone from our worksheet. Back in the code, if we look at our data validations attribute, we can see that there are no more data validation objects in our list. One thing you'll notice, though, is that the values of the cells are still there. When deleting the data validation, I want those values to disappear as well, so I'm going to modify the code a bit. Let me recreate the original workbook and open it up so we can see what we are working with. Okay, here we go. I have recreated our original workbook. Let me bring in the data validation objects as we initially had them. Perfect, there they are. Let me now bring over some code that will assist us in clearing away the values also contained on the worksheet. Let me walk through this code and explain what is happening. I start a for loop, iterating through the count of data validation objects that I have. We know that to be 2. The loop variable is called dv, which will be an integer. In the loop, I assign the dv location variable a coordinate, which you can see I am printing on the line beneath it. Let's walk through this coordinate code. I start by selecting the data validations attribute of the worksheet. Of that attribute, we select the data validations attribute, which we know is a list of data validation attributes on the page. Since it is a list, I can pass an integer to extract just the item of the list that I want. That's where our dv variable comes into play. Each data validation object has a square ref attribute, which is the cell location of the data validation object. That square ref attribute has a range attribute, signifying the range of cells affected by the data validation object. I am able to transform that range object to a list and extract the single cell range object it contains. That cell range object has a chord attribute that is the physical location of the cell. We should expect to see cells C4 and B2 printed down below when we run this code. Finally, the last bit in the loop assigns those two cells of interest none, making those cells empty. Then I finish by removing all data validations from the worksheet. So let's run this cell now, and there we can see the two cells that we care about printed below. I'll save the workbook and reopen it. And here we have it. Blank cells where a data validation list object used to reside. So it's quite simple. Import the data validation list object from the worksheet.dataValidation module and then assign that object to the data validations attribute of the worksheet. Thank you as always for stopping by and checking out this video. Please give it a thumbs up if you found it helpful and informative. Leave a comment below letting me know if you liked it, and what other features of OpenPyXL or Python in general you would like to see reviewed in future releases. And please don't forget to hit subscribe so that you know when the next video drops.